chances are most people are just watching this video. I don't know. I feel like it's the right thing to do to post a video of how I done this because nobody else has, and it would have helped me out a lot trying to figure out what the heck I needed to buy and everything else. Anyhow, I have a 95 GM NV4500. It's a unique gear because it's got the newer style input shaft, but yet the older style input bearing retainer with the external slave cylinder. So you can't directly mount the external slave cylinder to the duramax because there's this kidney sticking out on the oil pan, and the slave cylinder has to live right here. So that was a huge bummer starting this job and realizing that I couldn't use just that slave cylinder, because that would have made life really easy, like super easy. So I tried a bunch of different things. I made an adapter ring, then I made an adapter ring with a washer, and then I realized that even with the adapter ring and the washer, I didn't have enough clearance to fit this thing inside the bell housing with the spacers that I could buy. So I had to turn this thing down. So I bought a cheap Harbor Freight Chinese grade lathe and just barely got the job done with it. I think I did more harm than good, but this surface is pretty stinking true, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I think it's gonna work out just fine for this application. So anyhow, the final turnout here is that I cut this thing down a lot. I'll give you a measurement on it. I don't know exactly how much I took out of it. I was trying to be scientific, but when it's your first day on a lathe and you're trying to cut this thing, it's pretty hard to be scientific. So if I give you this dimension, you'll know that you can turn it down to that and be safe, right? Sure. You're looking right there? Okay. Here's our bearing retainer, and here's our calipers. So that is, can you see that? Oh yeah, you can see that. If not, I'll read it to you. 1.284 is what I ended up as a final dimension on this thing. Yeah, 284. So if you cut it down to that, there's two things I can tell you. One, this is gonna fall off. Two, you won't get into your oiler here, the bearing oiler. That's still solid. So I'd call that a good number. I stepped this thing. Maybe you can do a better job. My goal was to have this kind of line up inside of here so that this slave was centered at the base. So when this thing sat on top, this should be down inside here like that, and that's like a perfect fit there. That didn't go to plan because when I took it apart, this thing fell off of it. I had a pretty bad jig. This is the Harbor Freight lathe I used. They call it a 7-inch lathe, but this chuck is so small you can't fit anything in there, so I had to build something to clamp it with, and that went poorly. I won't go into depth on that. If you're to do this, probably just as easy to take it to the machine shop and tell them to cut the end off it and make the final thickness that much, and they'll do a good job, a better job than I could do. Anyhow, this is my 95 input bearing retainer, taken down to 1.284, I think is what it was. I'm using the stock input shaft right now. This thing phone dies at the worst time, so now it's a corded phone. Anyhow, I'm using the stock input shaft. I'm gonna probably end up buying an 1.25 inch input shaft for a GM, and the 1.25 inch clutch So that'll be in a couple videos later. But for right now, I got the transmission to bolt up to the engine with the current setup I got, and that's just what I'm going to try to show you. Changing out the input shaft and clutch are easy. The 96 guys got it pretty easy. From what I understand, this setup works. This is the newer style input bearing retainer and the newer style slave cylinder. When I throw this guy on his face and this guy on his face, if you look at the depth of the two of them, they're pretty stinking close. So I think these guys can get away with just making it work with what they got and not having to change anything. It really kind of sucks I had to go through all these hoops, but I did. So if you have a 96, now's the time to start paying attention, because here's everything else. Also, this is a 2001 Duramax slave cylinder. A couple things to note: it doesn't have a bleeder on it. So the way I have this thing clocked inside the tranny, it points down. So I'm going to have to bleed it on the bench and then keep it sealed up when I install it, because I can't bleed it after it's all in the truck. I mean, you can, maybe. I'm not really sure. Not a big concern of mine. I'm just going to bleed it and be done. No modifications of the transmission yet. Like I said, I'll put an 1.25 inch shaft in it, and then I'll change my clutch. For the clutch and stuff, I got a 2001 LB7 flywheel for a ZF6 transmission. Same thing, the input bearing retainer I installed. I held it out just a little bit. There's a little machine groove in the bearing. I just punched it into that point just to give me a little bit more engagement on my input shaft. Here you can see right here's the wear line from the 6.5, and right here's the wear line for the Duramax. It's a lot less, but I don't really care. I think that only really takes effect whenever you disengage the clutch, so not a big deal. My friction disc here is right now it's a Chevy 6.5 liter friction disc. For Rock Auto, it's an impact. I have a Sachs version. It does not fit inside of this pressure plate. The diameter of the hub on the friction disc is too large to fit inside of that pressure plate disc. So I bought a different style that looked like it might work, and it ended up working. I got good clearance on the nose of this with the snout of the slave cylinder. So I think all that stuff's gonna work. Yeah, that's about it. I bought these bolts. If you look back a couple videos, you'll see probably might as well just buy them from the auto parts. And then for the flywheel bolts, they're over here, all the brand new ones. I got a couple used ones in there. These came from GM. It was $64 for all 8 of them. Not a big deal in terms of doing a Duramax swap. So yeah, if you buy the Duramax clutch kit and throw away the friction disc, then you buy off Rock Auto the impact friction disc for a Chevy, and this actually came with the Duramax clutch kit. That's all you need to put this thing together. And then you take this bad boy to a machine shop. I don't know about with the newer style. This is a smaller diameter bearing on the out of this thing. That's good words. It's smaller diameter. If you have it perfectly centered on the Duramax pressure plate, it'd probably work. I can't say with certainty though. I kind of lined it up the one day, and if you put this thing on here, it's real stinking close to not working. So that's up to you if you want to That'd probably work. That's up to you if you want to try to make that work. Otherwise, look back a couple videos and you can see what I was going to do with my 6.5 pressure plate. The only difference besides this hole is these dowel pins. So if you line them up and knock this dowel pin out on the 6.5 pressure plate, you can probably get away with that. But I feel a lot better having a Duramax pressure plate on there. So, I mean, there's that. One of the final things is this. I bought a 3/8 bell housing spacer off of Summit Racing. It came with new dowel pins, and it's got a lower half sitting on the ground there. And then with the Duramax release bearing, I had to buy an adapter hose. And I can't find the adapter hose. I know it's around here somewhere, but if you look back in my other videos, you'll find it. I put pictures up of all my receipts for the stuff I bought off of Summit. So, yeah, in a nutshell, that's it. It took a lot of work and thinking and messing things up to get to this point. And if you want to see all that, by all means, check it out. If you don't, well, here's a little abridged version just for you. Oh, yeah, this thing. I had to cut this off. That's the pivot for the external bearing. I just went in there with the flap disc and smoothed it out just so that my new release comes right out that hole. It sits right in the bell housing, just like that. So, this is a little tight. So, the fittings I bought, I got a straight here that's going to go right out through this hole. And then that hole there. A 5-foot line to wrap up to the clutch. And I got adapter lines to go to both the LS style and then the older style. Let me go find those quick and I'll just show you what they look like. So, as promised, here's the old big load. This is a 5-foot AN4 to AN4. This is the part number for it. It's got these fancy old fittings on the end of it. Just some sort of hydraulic fitting. This is Earl. He makes clutch hydraulic fittings. So this guy is your older style GM, like my 95, up to whatever they went to the new body. This is your LS style. So that's pretty sweet. You just put that threaded in, no sealer needed because it seals on a taper, and you got your adapter. So I'm gonna keep my original 95 Master. I found a good aluminum one a while back. I had a plastic one split open on me, so gonna run the aluminum 95 Master, and then the LS style slave, and I got a line for it. If this ends up being too short, I can buy an AN4 coupler and then just buy another line for it and be done with it. So when I bleed that thing, I'll end up bleeding it on the bench with this line, and then I can just pull the line off at the master side and cap it or something with an AN4 cap and be done with it. It'll bleed itself that far up, but just down there where it's pointing down inside the slave, it won't. So yeah, this isn't that bad, but it takes a lot of parts that you don't need to buy, that you have to buy to know that you don't need them. And so I just wanted to clear the air, tell people how to do it, and yeah. Oh, this is really important. How the fuck did you mount this internal slave to this? I went through all the ways I didn't do it, and then I never actually told you how I did it. So, I don't exactly remember how I measured this thing. I didn't video it either, because I got sick of videoing the wrong things, but I think it went something along the lines of this. When you take this guy and put him in upside down, and then put him on here. No, this is wrong. No, what I did was I had my original plate that was drilled out for this. It's had something like that. Yeah. So I made this original adapter plate that was drilled in thread to bolt onto the original holes of my slave cylinder. And then I also had it, you'll see how I made this plate, but in the short of things, this plate's really pretty accurately made. It sits on here because originally I was going to bolt this down, and then these were going to be other bolts, just regular bolts that went underneath of the plate, and then this sat on top like so. So I already had a couple holes lined up on it. Then the next thing I did was I bolted this plate to these two holes and then drilled the second two holes out of it. Then I took this guy and I bolted my plate onto him with both of those holes, and I drilled this hole. Then I took a C-clamp and pulled this bolt. Well, I clamped it down, pulled the bolt, and then drilled that hole through with my second hand drill press. The bit's still sitting in it because I just did it like 2 days ago. And this is, I don't know, 3/8 inch, and this is 3/8 inch. I checked whatever drill bit fit in here is what I drilled these out to. And so with my studs that I made, I suppose I should go through that part as well. I made a handful of studs, but my final set of studs are located somewhere on this workbench, right here. So I made these nuts in a different video. They don't need to be made like that, but the studs are the same length as the bolts, and then I just hit them with a punch to keep the nut from spinning. It's just a piece of all-thread with a nut on it. So then you bolt this thing onto the transmission, and you put your bolts in these two, and you put your studs here, and then you put this thing on. Well, it sits like that, so I definitely flopped holes, but you get the point, right? This thing goes, well, it's gonna look like poo. We'll go this way. I put a Sharpie mark on this thing. It's hard to see now, but this is the top, and so all my stuff has alignment marks scribed on it for top. And then this guy sits right like that, and there's enough tolerance in them that with a little bit of help from this thing sliding over your input shaft, you can center it just about perfectly, and then snug those down. I'm going to eventually put shims here to line this up to the same height as the surface that I machined. When you bolt this thing down, if you put this side too tight, because your fastening point is outside of your bearing point, it does that. So I'll just shim it so it doesn't do that. Actually, it's got some wobble in it. Yeah, it doesn't have wobble there, it's fine. But anyhow, that's how I did that. When you look at this one, it's got, you can't really see it. Oh, you can see it. It's got some play in it, so I'm sure mine can have some play in it. I tried to make it perfect, so just off of perfect is going to be good enough, and I'm sure it won't wear out in the amount of time it takes to wear out the... Hey, what are you doing? You know, I'll deal with that later. She's chewing a pencil. This won't wear out before my clutch does, is what I'm trying to say. Or my release bearing, or not release bearing, but pilot bearing. So I'm not that worried about it. I'll float the gears if I have to. Anyhow, that's this thing in a nutshell. Get creative and you'll figure it out. Yeah, feel free to check out all my other videos though. They're not super like funny or anything. I'm not Vice Grip Garage, but you know, I'm just trying to put out as much information as possible on this stuff, and hopefully someday this truck will run. And by someday, I mean Christmas this year. So thanks for watching, and hopefully you get some enjoyment out of it. Not enjoyment, but usefulness. What do you think, Skunk? Yeah, you. Alright. Have a good night.